Marcus had been standing guard at Buckingham Palace for 3 years, but he had never seen anything like what happened that Tuesday morning. The rain was coming down hard, making the tourists run for cover under the palace gates. Most days were the same. People taking photos, asking questions he couldn't answer, and children pressing their faces against the iron bars trying to get a better look at the guards. Marcus wore the traditional red uniform with the tall black hat that made him look like a toy soldier. His job was simple: stand perfectly still, look straight ahead, and never break character. The tourists loved it when the guards didn't move, even when they made funny faces or told jokes right in front of them. Breaking protocol meant serious trouble, and Marcus had worked too hard to get this position to throw it away. That morning, a small group of school children arrived with their teacher. They were maybe 7 or 8 years old, all wearing matching blue raincoats and carrying tiny umbrellas. The teacher was trying to keep them in line, but kids will be kids. They scattered around the gate, pointing at Marcus and the other guards, whispering excitedly about the funny hats and shiny boots. One little girl with curly red hair caught Marcus's attention. While the other children were laughing and playing, she stood quietly by herself, staring directly at him. Her green eyes looked worried, almost scared. She kept glancing back at the group, then looking at Marcus again. Something about her expression made him uncomfortable, but he couldn't look away or acknowledge her presence. The girl slowly moved closer to the gate where Marcus was standing. She pretended to tie her shoe, but Marcus could see she was actually trying to get his attention. She looked up at him with those big green eyes and did something that made his heart skip a beat. She held up her hand against the gate and showed him 5 fingers, then quickly made a fist, then 5 fingers again. Marcus knew that signal. During his military training, they had learned about distress codes that children might use if they were in danger. 5 fingers, fist, 5 fingers meant help me, in the silent communication system taught to kids in schools. But this was just a school trip with a teacher. What could possibly be wrong? The little girl kept repeating the signal, looking more desperate each time. She glanced nervously at her teacher, who was busy talking to another parent who had come along on the trip. The other children were still playing and taking pictures, completely unaware that something was happening right in front of them. Marcus felt his training kick in. Every rule said he should stay in position, not move, not react. But every instinct told him this child needed help. The signal was clear, and she was being very careful to make sure only he could see it. She wasn't playing a game or trying to get attention like the other kids. This was different. The teacher called for the children to gather around for a group photo. The little girl looked panic-stricken as she was called over. She gave Marcus one last desperate look and repeated the signal more urgently. Then she mouthed the word "please" so clearly that Marcus felt his chest tighten. As the group started to move away for their next stop on the tour, Marcus made a decision that would change everything. He couldn't let that little girl leave without knowing what was wrong. Royal protocol or not, some things were more important than rules. The moment the group turned the corner, Marcus stepped away from his post. His fellow guard gave him a shocked look, but Marcus was already moving. He had maybe 2 minutes before his absence would be noticed by the palace security. 2 minutes to find out what that little girl was trying to tell him, and 2 minutes to decide if he was about to discover something that would shake the very foundations of everything he thought he knew about his job. Marcus hurried after the group, his heavy boots echoing on the wet pavement. He could see the children ahead, their bright raincoats making them easy to spot in the gray London morning. The little girl with the red curls was at the back of the group, walking slower than the others. She kept looking over her shoulder as if hoping to see him coming. When she spotted Marcus following them, her face lit up with relief and fear at the same time. She hung back even more, letting the group get further ahead. Marcus knew he was taking a huge risk, but something told him this was bigger than just a scared child on a school trip. The way she had used that distress signal, the fear in her eyes, the careful way she had hidden her communication from the adults, it all pointed to something serious. As Marcus got closer, he realized this decision was about to lead him into something he never could have imagined. The little girl was about to reveal a secret that would challenge everything he thought he knew about the royal family, the palace, and his own role as a guard. But first he had to catch up to her and find out what she was really trying to tell him. Marcus caught up to the little girl just as the group stopped at the next tourist attraction. She was standing behind a large tree, clearly waiting for him. When she saw him approaching, she looked both relieved and terrified. Her small hands were shaking as she clutched her backpack. "Please, sir," she whispered, glancing around to make sure no one was watching. "I need to tell someone, but the adults won't believe me. They think I'm just making up stories." Marcus knelt down to her level, breaking every rule in the Royal Guard handbook. "What's your name, sweetheart?" he asked gently, trying to keep his voice calm even though his heart was racing. "Emma," she said quietly. "Emma Thompson. I live near the palace with my grandmother. That's how I know." "Know what, Emma?" Emma took a deep breath and looked directly into Marcus's eyes. "I know about the secret meetings. I know about the people who come to the palace at night through the old servants' entrance. The one that's supposed to be sealed up." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. The old servants' entrance had been permanently closed 15 years ago for security reasons. It was behind the palace, completely hidden from public view, and there was no way a child should know about it, let alone know that people were using it. "Emma, are you sure about what you saw?" Marcus asked carefully. "Sometimes shadows and lights can play tricks on us, especially at night." Emma shook her head firmly. "I'm not making it up. My grandmother's house looks right out onto the back of the palace. Her bedroom window is on the 3rd floor, and I sleep there sometimes when Mommy and Daddy are traveling for work. I've seen them 3 times now." She reached into her backpack and pulled out a small notebook with a unicorn on the cover. "I wrote everything down just like grandmother taught me. She used to be a journalist before she retired. She always says to write down the important things so you don't forget." Marcus looked at the notebook, amazed at how organized this 8-year-old was. Emma opened it to a page covered in careful, neat handwriting. "The first time was 2 weeks ago," she read from her notes. "It was very late, maybe midnight. I couldn't sleep because of the thunder. I looked out the window and saw a black car with no license plates. 3 people got out, 2 men in dark suits and a woman with long blonde hair. They went to the old door at the back of the palace, and it opened. Someone was waiting for them inside." Marcus's blood ran cold. The palace security systems were supposed to monitor every entrance. If someone was using the old servants' entrance, it meant either the security had been compromised, or someone with very high clearance was allowing these secret meetings. "The second time was last week," Emma continued. "Same car, same people, but this time they brought suitcases. Big, heavy ones that they needed both hands to carry. They stayed inside for about an hour, then left the same way they came." "And the third time?" Marcus asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to hear the answer. 3 days ago, but this time was different." Emma's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "This time I saw who let them in." Marcus waited, his mouth dry. Emma looked around again, making sure they were still alone behind the tree. It was someone wearing royal robes, the fancy kind with gold trim that only the really important people wear. I couldn't see their face because they stayed in the shadows, but I could see the clothes clearly. The woman with blonde hair called them "Your Highness." Marcus felt like the ground was shifting under his feet. If Emma was telling the truth, someone in the royal family was having secret meetings with unknown individuals, using an entrance that was supposed to be sealed, completely bypassing all security protocols. "Emma, have you told anyone else about this?" he asked urgently. She nodded sadly. "I tried to tell grandmother, but she thought I was having nightmares. I tried to tell my teacher, but she said I had an overactive imagination. When I saw you standing guard today, I remembered the signs they taught us in school for emergencies. I thought maybe someone who works at the palace would believe me." Marcus looked at this brave little girl who had risked everything to tell him what she had seen. She had no way of knowing how dangerous this information could be or what it might mean, but Marcus was beginning to understand that Emma had stumbled onto something that could threaten the very stability of the monarchy. "Emma, I need you to promise me something," Marcus said seriously. "Don't tell anyone else about this, okay? Not until I can figure out what's happening. Can you do that for me?" Emma nodded solemnly. "Are you going to investigate? Are you going to find out who those people are?" Marcus looked back toward the palace where he was supposed to be standing guard, following orders, asking no questions. Then he looked at Emma's hopeful, trusting face. "Yes," he said quietly. "I'm going to find out exactly what's happening. But first I need to get you back to your group before anyone notices you're missing." As they walked back toward Emma's school group, Marcus's mind was racing. He had no idea what he was about to uncover, but he knew there was no turning back now. Emma had given him information that could expose a conspiracy at the highest levels of the royal family. The question was, what was he going to do about it? That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Emma's story and the notebook with her careful observations. After his shift ended, he had gone home to his small apartment near the palace and spent hours trying to convince himself that it was all just a child's imagination. But something deep in his gut told him Emma was telling the truth. Marcus had been in the military before becoming a royal guard, and he had learned to trust his instincts. Those instincts were screaming that something was very wrong. He decided he had to investigate, even if it meant risking his career. The next morning, Marcus arrived at work early and volunteered for extra shifts. His supervisor was happy to have someone so eager to work overtime, especially since it meant covering the less popular night duties. Marcus specifically requested to patrol the back grounds of the palace, the area where Emma claimed to have seen the secret meetings. For 3 nights, Marcus walked the dark paths behind the palace, carefully checking every shadow and corner. The old servants' entrance was exactly where Emma had said it would be. A heavy wooden door painted to blend in with the stone wall, with iron bolts that looked rusty and unused. During the day, it appeared to be permanently sealed, just as the official record stated. But on his 4th night of investigation, Marcus noticed something odd. When he tested the door handle very gently, it turned. The bolts were decorative, the door was actually functional. Someone had gone to great lengths to make it look abandoned while keeping it operational for secret use. Marcus felt his heart pounding as he realized Emma had been absolutely right. Someone was definitely using this entrance for unauthorized access to the palace. But who and why? He decided to position himself in the gardens where he could watch the door without being seen. If Emma's pattern was correct, the mysterious visitors came about once a week, always late at night. Marcus found a perfect hiding spot behind a large hedge that gave him a clear view of both the door and any approaching vehicles. On his 6th night of watching, Marcus hit the jackpot. At exactly 11:47 p.m., a sleek black sedan with tinted windows pulled up to the back gate. The car had no visible license plates, just as Emma had described. Marcus crouched lower behind the hedge, his phone ready to record whatever happened next. 3 figures got out of the car, 2 men in expensive suits and a tall woman with shoulder-length blonde hair. They moved with the confidence of people who had done this many times before. The woman carried a briefcase while one of the men had a large duffel bag. Marcus watched as they approached the old servant's entrance. The woman knocked in a specific pattern: 3 quick knocks, pause, 2 knocks, pause, 3 more knocks. Within seconds, the door opened from the inside. The person who opened the door stayed in the shadows, but Marcus could see enough to confirm Emma's description. The figure wore formal robes with gold trim, definitely royal attire. The voice was muffled, but Marcus heard them say, "You're late. We don't have much time." "Traffic," the blonde woman replied simply. "Do you have what we discussed?" "Everything is prepared, but I'm becoming concerned about the risks. If anyone discovers these meetings, no one will," one of the men said firmly. "We've been careful. The arrangement benefits everyone involved." Marcus tried to get closer to hear better, but as he moved, his foot caught a small branch. The tiny snap sound seemed impossibly loud in the quiet night. All 4 people at the door immediately turned toward his hiding place. "What was that?" the blonde woman hissed. Marcus held his breath, pressing himself as flat as possible against the ground behind the hedge. His heart was beating so loud he was sure they could hear it. "Probably just a cat," the royal figure said, but their voice sounded nervous. "Come inside quickly. We have a lot to discuss." The group disappeared through the door, which closed with a heavy thud. Marcus waited a full 10 minutes before moving, making sure they weren't coming back out. When he finally stood up, his legs were shaking from both the cold and the adrenaline. Marcus had confirmed that Emma's story was true, but now he had even more questions. What kind of arrangement were they talking about? What was in the briefcase and duffel bag? And most importantly, which member of the royal family was involved in these secret meetings? As he walked back to his patrol route, Marcus realized he was in an impossible situation. He had evidence of unauthorized access to the palace and secret meetings involving someone from the royal family. But he couldn't report it through normal channels without revealing that he had been conducting his own investigation, which would get him fired immediately. Even worse, he didn't know who he could trust. If a member of the royal family was involved in something secretive enough to require hidden meetings, then anyone in the palace hierarchy could be part of it. Reporting to the wrong person could put both him and Emma in danger. Marcus spent the rest of his shift trying to figure out what to do next. By morning, he had made a decision. He needed more information before he could take any action. He needed to find out exactly who was behind that door, what they were discussing, and whether it was something harmful or just embarrassing. But first, he had to talk to Emma again. She had been brave enough to report what she saw, and she deserved to know that someone had believed her. More importantly, Marcus was beginning to think that Emma might be the key to solving this mystery. Her grandmother's house had the perfect view of the palace, and Emma had already proven she was an excellent observer. Marcus was about to ask an 8-year-old girl to help him investigate what might be the biggest scandal in royal history. It wasn't exactly standard protocol, but then again, nothing about this situation was standard. Finding Emma again proved easier than Marcus had expected. During his lunch break, he walked to the neighborhood near the palace where Emma had said she lived with her grandmother. It was an area of tall old houses that had been built when the palace was first constructed, designed to house the families of palace staff and noble courtiers. Marcus knocked on doors, asking politely if anyone knew the Thompson family. On his 5th try, an elderly man pointed to a narrow house with a red door and flower boxes in the windows. "That's old Mrs. Thompson's place," the man said. "Lives there with her granddaughter sometimes. Lovely little girl with red curls, always asking questions about everything." Marcus felt nervous as he approached the red door. He was about to involve a civilian family in what could be a dangerous investigation, but he also knew that Emma might be the only witness who could help him understand what was really happening. Mrs. Thompson answered the door after his first knock. She was a small, sharp-eyed woman in her 70s, wearing a cardigan and glasses that hung from a chain around her neck. "Can I help you?" she asked, looking at Marcus's civilian clothes with curiosity. "Mrs. Thompson, my name is Marcus. I work at the palace and I met your granddaughter Emma yesterday. She told me about some things she's been seeing from your upstairs window, and I believe she might be right about what she saw." Mrs. Thompson's expression changed immediately from polite curiosity to sharp attention. "You believed her? About the nighttime visitors?" "Yes, ma'am. I've seen them myself now." Emma was very brave to report what she observed, and very smart about how she did it. Mrs. Thompson studied Marcus for a long moment, then stepped aside. "You'd better come in. Emma is doing her homework upstairs, but I think she should hear this." The inside of the house was cozy and filled with books. Photographs covered the mantelpiece, and Marcus could see awards and certificates hanging on the walls, evidence of Mrs. Thompson's career as a journalist. "Emma." Mrs. Thompson called up the stairs. "Could you come down, please? There's someone here who wants to talk to you about what you saw." Emma appeared at the top of the stairs, still wearing her school uniform. When she saw Marcus, her face lit up with excitement and relief. "You came back. Did you find out what's happening? Are those people bad?" Marcus gestured for both Emma and her grandmother to sit down. "Emma, first I want to apologize for not believing you sooner. You were absolutely right about everything you told me. I've seen the secret meetings myself now." Mrs. Thompson leaned forward, her journalist instincts clearly activated. "What exactly are we talking about here?" "Emma told me she saw people going into the palace through a back entrance, but I thought she was having vivid dreams." Marcus looked at Emma, who nodded encouragingly. "Your granddaughter has discovered something very serious. Unknown individuals are meeting secretly with someone from the royal family, using an entrance that's supposed to be permanently sealed. They're being very careful to avoid all normal security procedures." Mrs. Thompson's eyes widened. "Good heavens. Emma, you really did see something important?" Emma beamed with pride, then quickly became serious again. "But we still don't know who the royal person is or what they're talking about in those meetings." "That's where I was hoping you might be able to help," Marcus said carefully. "Your window has the perfect view of that entrance. If you're willing, and if your grandmother agrees, you could help me gather more information about when these meetings happen and who's involved." Mrs. Thompson stood up and walked to the window that faced the palace. "I can see the back entrance from here, even in the dark. Emma, show him your notebook." Emma ran upstairs and returned with her unicorn notebook. She had added several new entries since Marcus had seen it last. "I've been watching every night since I talked to you," Emma said proudly. "2 more meetings. Look." She showed Marcus pages of detailed observations. Emma had noted the time each meeting started and ended, descriptions of the vehicles, the number of people, what they carried, and even weather conditions. It was more thorough than many police reports Marcus had seen. "This is incredible work, Emma," Marcus said genuinely. "You're like a real detective." "The most recent meeting was last night," Mrs. Thompson said, reading over Emma's shoulder. And Emma noticed something new. Emma flipped to her latest entry. "The royal person came outside this time just for a minute. I could see them better because the moon was really bright." Marcus felt his pulse quicken. "What did you see?" "It was a woman," Emma said confidently. She had long dark hair and she was wearing a blue robe with gold embroidery. She looked young, maybe the same age as my mummy. Marcus's mind raced through the possibilities. A young woman in royal robes with dark hair could be one of several people in the royal family. But the blue robe with gold embroidery was very specific. Those colors and designs were reserved for only the highest-ranking royals. "Emma, this is very important," Marcus said. "Are you absolutely sure about the blue robe?" "Positive. I even drew a picture." Emma flipped to another page where she had made a careful sketch of the robes, including the pattern of the gold embroidery. Mrs. Thompson examined the drawing with professional interest. Emma has always been good at remembering details. If she says it was blue with gold embroidery, then that's what it was. Marcus stared at the drawing, his mind reeling. Blue robes with that specific gold pattern were only worn by one person in the entire royal family. If Emma's observation was correct, then the person having secret meetings was someone whose involvement would create a scandal that could threaten the stability of the monarchy itself. "Mrs. Thompson," Marcus said slowly, "I need to ask you both to be very careful from now on. What Emma has discovered could be extremely dangerous if the wrong people find out she knows about it." "Dangerous how?" Mrs. Thompson asked, her protective instincts clearly aroused. "People who go to great lengths to keep meetings secret usually have very good reasons for wanting them to stay secret. If they find out someone has been watching and taking notes." Marcus didn't finish the sentence, but he didn't need to. Mrs. Thompson understood immediately. "Emma," she said firmly, "from now on no more watching from the window after dark. And we don't talk about this to anyone except Marcus." Emma looked disappointed but nodded seriously. "I understand, grandmother. But Marcus, you have to promise to find out what's really happening. If someone in the royal family is doing something bad, people should know about it." Marcus looked at this remarkable 8-year-old who had accidentally stumbled onto what might be the biggest royal conspiracy in decades. She had been braver and more observant than trained security professionals. Now it was his job to figure out what to do with the information she had given him. Marcus left the Thompson house with his mind spinning. Emma's description of the blue robes meant the person involved in these secret meetings was Princess Catherine, the king's youngest daughter. She was 28 years old, known for her charity work and public appearances, and generally considered one of the most trusted members of the royal family. The idea that Princess Catherine might be involved in something requiring secret meetings seemed impossible, but Emma's evidence was too detailed to ignore. Marcus knew he had to find out more, but he also knew he was walking into very dangerous territory. Back at the palace, Marcus tried to act normal during his shifts, but his mind kept wandering to the mystery. He found himself watching Princess Catherine whenever she appeared for official functions, looking for any signs that might explain the secret meetings. 3 days after his visit to the Thompson house, Marcus got his chance for more information. He was assigned to guard duty during a small reception in the palace gardens. Princess Catherine was there talking with various guests, and Marcus was positioned close enough to overhear conversations. Most of the talk was exactly what he expected: polite discussion about charity events, weather, and social gatherings. But then Marcus heard something that made his blood run cold. Princess Catherine was talking quietly with a man in an expensive suit, one of the same men Marcus had seen at the secret meeting. They were standing near a fountain, probably thinking the sound of water would cover their conversation. "The next delivery needs to be larger," the man was saying. "Our clients are becoming impatient and they're willing to pay significantly more for faster service." "I understand the urgency," Princess Catherine replied, "but we have to be careful. If anyone discovers what we're doing, it would destroy everything my family has worked for. The arrangements you've made are perfect. No one suspects anything, and the old entrance ensures we stay completely off the official records." Marcus felt sick. It sounded like Princess Catherine was involved in some kind of illegal business, using her royal position to hide criminal activity. The deliveries and clients suggested drugs, weapons, or some other kind of smuggling operation. The risks are increasing, Princess Catherine continued. I think we should consider ending this arrangement soon. Absolutely not, the man said firmly. Too much money is involved now and too many people are counting on us. We've come too far to stop. The conversation ended when other guests approached, but Marcus had heard enough. It seemed like Princess Catherine had gotten involved in something illegal and now wanted out. But her partners wouldn't let her stop. Marcus felt torn between his loyalty to the royal family and his duty to uphold the law. Princess Catherine might be a criminal, but she also sounded like someone who was trapped in a situation she couldn't escape. That night, Marcus decided he needed to gather more concrete evidence before taking any action. He positioned himself in the garden again, hoping to witness another secret meeting and possibly record some of the conversation. His patience paid off 2 nights later. The black sedan arrived right on schedule, and the same 3 people got out. This time, Marcus had brought a small recording device and positioned himself much closer to the old servant's entrance. The meeting lasted almost 2 hours, much longer than the previous ones Marcus had observed. He could hear voices but couldn't make out specific words through the thick palace walls. However, when the group finally emerged, Marcus was close enough to hear their final conversation clearly. The shipment will arrive next Tuesday, the blonde woman was saying. Everything will be exactly as ordered. No substitutions, no delays. Perfect, Princess Catherine replied. My contacts in the receiving department will make sure everything goes smoothly. No inspections, no paperwork, no questions. And the payment will be transferred to the usual account within 24 hours of delivery. But I want to remind you all, this has to be the last time. The risks are becoming too great. The man who had spoken to her at the reception stepped forward. Your Highness, with respect, that decision isn't entirely yours to make anymore. We have investors who are expecting returns, and clients who are depending on regular deliveries. Are you threatening me? Princess Catherine's voice was cold and angry. Not threatening, just reminding you of your commitments. You've benefited greatly from these arrangements. It would be unfortunate if anyone had to learn about your involvement. Marcus realized with horror that Princess Catherine was being blackmailed. Whatever she had gotten involved in, she was now trapped by people who were using her royal position for their own criminal purposes. As the group prepared to leave, Marcus heard Princess Catherine say something that changed everything he thought he understood about the situation. The children in the hospital are counting on these supplies. I won't let you use them as an excuse to continue your other activities. Medicine for sick children is one thing, but I won't be part of anything else. Children? Hospital? Medicine? Marcus suddenly realized he might have completely misunderstood what was happening. Were these secret meetings actually about helping sick children? Not criminal activity? But if that was true, why all the secrecy? Why use a hidden entrance and avoid all official channels? Why were these people threatening Princess Catherine? Marcus watched as the group got back into their car and drove away. Princess Catherine stood in the doorway for a long moment, looking tired and worried. When she finally went back inside and closed the door, Marcus heard her turn multiple locks. As Marcus walked back to his patrol route, his mind was reeling with new questions. If Princess Catherine was trying to help sick children, why was she being threatened? What kind of medicine required secret deliveries? And why couldn't this be done through normal royal charity channels? Marcus realized that what he had stumbled onto was far more complicated than a simple criminal conspiracy. Princess Catherine seemed to be caught between wanting to help people and being trapped by dangerous partners. But Marcus still didn't understand the full picture, and he was beginning to realize that finding the truth might put both him and Emma in serious danger. The next morning, Marcus knew he had to make a decision. He could report what he had discovered and let others handle the investigation, possibly destroying Princess Catherine's life and reputation, or he could try to learn more and potentially help her escape whatever trap she had fallen into. Either way, Marcus was no longer just a guard following orders. He was now part of a royal secret that could change everything. Marcus spent the weekend researching everything he could find about Princess Catherine's charity work. What he discovered made the secret meetings even more confusing. Princess Catherine was the patron of several children's hospitals and medical research organizations, all completely legitimate and well documented. If she wanted to help sick children, she had plenty of official ways to do it. On Monday morning, Marcus made a bold decision. He requested a private meeting with Princess Catherine through official channels, claiming he had important security information that concerned her personal safety. It was a huge risk, but Marcus felt he needed to hear her side of the story before taking any further action. To his surprise, Princess Catherine agreed to meet with him that afternoon in her private office. Marcus had never been in the royal family's personal quarters before, and he felt nervous as he was escorted through ornate hallways lined with centuries-old paintings. Princess Catherine's office was smaller and more comfortable than Marcus had expected. Books filled the shelves and photos of smiling children covered her desk, clearly pictures from her hospital visits and charity events. She looked tired and stressed with dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. "Guard Thompson," she said, gesturing for him to sit across from her desk. "My security chief tells me you have information about a threat to my safety. What exactly have you discovered?" Marcus took a deep breath. This was the moment that would either solve the mystery or destroy his career. "Your Highness, I know about the secret meetings at the old servants' entrance. I know about the people who come at night, and I know you're being threatened by them." Princess Catherine's face went completely pale. For a long moment she stared at Marcus without saying anything. Then she put her head in her hands. "How long have you known?" she asked quietly. "About 2 weeks. I've been investigating because a witness reported suspicious activity. Your Highness, I need to understand what's happening so I can determine if you're in danger." Princess Catherine looked up at Marcus, and he could see tears in her eyes. "I am in danger, but not in the way you probably think." She stood up and walked to the window that overlooked the palace gardens. "Guard Thompson, what I'm about to tell you could destroy my family's reputation and possibly end the monarchy as we know it. But I think I need help and I don't know who else to trust." Marcus waited, his heart pounding. "6 months ago," Princess Catherine began, "I was contacted by a group that claimed to represent families of children with a rare genetic disease. The disease is fatal and there's no approved treatment available in England. However, there is an experimental medication that's been successful in clinical trials in other countries. Why couldn't you help them through official channels?" "That's exactly what I tried to do first. But the experimental drug hasn't been approved by our medical authorities yet. The approval process could take years, and these children don't have years. Many of them have only months to live." Princess Catherine turned back to face Marcus. The group offered a solution. They had connections with the pharmaceutical company developing the drug. They could arrange for regular shipments of the medication to be delivered directly to the families who needed it, bypassing the normal approval process. Marcus began to understand. The secret meetings were about arranging illegal drug imports. Technically illegal, yes. But morally, how could I let children die when I had the power to save them? I used my royal connections to ensure the shipments could enter the country without going through normal customs inspections. I thought I was being a hero. What went wrong? Princess Catherine's expression darkened. I was naive. I thought these people genuinely cared about helping sick children. But I soon realized they were using the medicine deliveries as cover for importing other things. Drugs for recreational use, not medical treatment. Marcus felt the pieces of the puzzle clicking into place. They were using your royal connections to smuggle illegal drugs, hiding them among legitimate medical supplies. Exactly. By the time I figured out what was really happening, they had evidence of my involvement in importing unauthorized substances. They told me that if I tried to stop working with them, they would release information showing that a member of the royal family was involved in drug smuggling. But you were trying to help children. No one would believe that. The evidence would show that I used my royal position to bypass customs and import illegal substances. The scandal would destroy my family and probably end the monarchy. These people know exactly how to manipulate the situation. Marcus understood now why Princess Catherine looked so stressed and tired. She was trapped between wanting to help dying children and being blackmailed by criminals who were using her good intentions for their own profit. How many children are actually receiving the legitimate medicine? Marcus asked. 12 families with children between the ages of 4 and 16. I've met them all personally. Without this medicine, these children will die within the next year. But the criminals are using my humanitarian cover to import drugs worth millions of pounds. Princess Catherine sat back down at her desk, looking defeated. I don't know what to do, Guard Thompson. If I stop the arrangement, 12 children will die. But if I continue, I'm helping drug dealers make millions while they blackmail me. And now that you know about it, you're in danger too. What kind of danger? These aren't just small-time criminals. They have connections to international drug cartels and organized crime syndicates. They've made it very clear that anyone who threatens their operation will be eliminated. Marcus realized that Emma and her grandmother were also in potential danger. If these criminals discovered that a child had been watching and documenting their activities, they might take action to protect their secret. Your Highness, we need to find a way to save those children while stopping the criminals, and we need to do it before anyone else gets hurt. Princess Catherine looked at Marcus with surprise. We? You're willing to help me even though it could cost you your job and possibly your life? Marcus thought about Emma's brave decision to report what she had seen, even when adults didn't believe her. He thought about 12 children who would die without medicine, and about criminals using their suffering to make illegal profits. Yes, Your Highness, I'm willing to help, but we're going to need a very careful plan. Marcus and Princess Catherine spent the next 3 hours developing a plan that would save the children, stop the criminals, and protect everyone involved. It was risky and complicated, but it was their only chance to resolve the situation without anyone getting hurt. The first step was to contact an old friend of Marcus's from his military days who now worked with international law enforcement. Agent Sarah Mitchell specialized in pharmaceutical crimes and had experience dealing with drug cartels that used medical supplies as cover for their operations. Kansas. Catherine was nervous about involving outside authorities, but Marcus convinced her that they needed professional help to handle something this dangerous. Agent Mitchell agreed to meet them secretly the next evening, and Marcus arranged for Emma and her grandmother to stay with relatives outside London until the situation was resolved. We have 2 main goals, Agent Mitchell explained when they met in a safe house outside the city. First, we need to ensure continued access to the experimental medicine for the children who need it. Second, we need to gather enough evidence to arrest the criminals without exposing Princess Catherine's involvement. How is that possible? Princess Catherine asked. They have evidence that I helped them bypass customs inspections. Because you were acting in good faith to help dying children, Agent Mitchell replied. In cases like this, law enforcement agencies have ways to protect people who were manipulated by criminals. We can arrange for the legitimate medicine deliveries to continue through proper legal channels while we build a case against the drug smugglers. The plan they developed was complex but clever. Princess Catherine would continue with the secret meetings for 2 more weeks, but this time, she would be wearing recording devices provided by Agent Mitchell. The goal was to get the criminals to admit on tape that they were using her humanitarian efforts as cover for illegal drug smuggling. Meanwhile, Agent Mitchell's team would monitor the next shipment and identify exactly which items were legitimate medicine and which were illegal drugs. They would also trace the criminal organization's financial networks to identify all the people involved. Marcus's role was to provide security for Princess Catherine and continue his surveillance of the secret meetings. But this time, instead of just watching, he would be coordinating with law enforcement to ensure they had all the evidence they needed. The first recorded meeting took place 4 days later. Princess Catherine was nervous but determined as she met with the criminal group. Marcus listened from his hiding place as Agent Mitchell monitored the conversation from a van parked nearby. I want guarantees that the children's medicine will continue to be available, Princess Catherine said, following the script they had rehearsed. Of course, Your Highness, the blonde woman replied. The medical shipments are very profitable for us. As long as you continue to help with our other imports, the children will get what they need. What other imports? Princess Catherine asked innocently. You don't need to worry about the details. Just remember that the medicine for those sick children represents only a small part of our business. The other items we bring in generate the real money. It was exactly the kind of admission Agent Mitchell needed. The criminals had just confessed on tape that they were using dying children as cover for a larger drug smuggling operation. 2 weeks later, everything came together perfectly. Agent Mitchell's team had identified the entire criminal network, traced their financial operations, and gathered evidence of their international connections. Most importantly, they had arranged for the experimental medicine to be made available through official channels, with emergency approval from medical authorities. On the night of the final sting operation, Marcus watched from his usual hiding place as the black sedan arrived for what the criminals thought would be another routine delivery. But this time, Law enforcement agents were positioned all around the palace grounds. When the car doors opened, Agent Mitchell's team moved in. The arrests were swift and quiet. The criminals never had a chance to resist or destroy evidence. Princess Catherine was safely inside the palace, and Marcus made sure the old servant's entrance was permanently sealed after the operation. The best part of the entire operation was the outcome for the children. Not only did they continue to receive the medicine they needed, but the publicity from the case led to accelerated approval of the experimental drug. Within 6 months, it was available through normal medical channels for any child who needed it. Emma and her grandmother returned to London after the arrests were made. When Marcus visited them to explain what had happened, Emma was thrilled to learn that her careful observations had helped save children's lives and stop real criminals. "I can't believe my notebook helped catch bad guys and save sick children," Emma said, beaming with pride. Mrs. Thompson looked at Marcus with admiration. "You took a tremendous risk believing Emma and investigating this situation. Most adults would have dismissed her story." "Emma was the real hero," Marcus replied. "Without her courage and careful observations, those criminals would still be operating and Princess Catherine would still be trapped." 3 months later, Marcus received a commendation for his role in the operation, though the full details were kept classified to protect Princess Catherine's privacy. He also received a personal letter from each of the 12 families whose children had been saved, thanking him for his part in ensuring they received life-saving treatment. Princess Catherine made a public announcement about her support for accelerated approval of experimental medicines for terminally ill children. But the details of the criminal investigation were never made public. The royal family's reputation remained intact, and Princess Catherine was able to continue her charity work without any scandal. Marcus continued working as a royal guard, but his experience had changed him. He had learned that sometimes the most important part of protecting people isn't following orders, but being willing to listen when someone needs help, and he had discovered that an 8-year-old girl with a unicorn notebook could be the most reliable witness he had ever encountered. Emma continued to live with her grandmother and became known in their neighborhood as the girl who helped solve a royal mystery. She kept her unicorn notebook and filled it with observations about everything she found interesting, though she never again discovered anything quite as dramatic as secret meetings at the palace. But most importantly, 12 children who had been facing certain death were now healthy and thriving, thanks to the experimental medicine that Emma's observations had helped make available. The royal secret that had started with a child's distress signal had ended with lives saved and criminals stopped, proving that sometimes the smallest voices can make the biggest difference.